Hello, it's me. I just walked past some guy, I think basically doing exactly the same thing that I'm doing, but he has like a full camera rig. Well, I say that. He's got like a little handle, I guess like a steady cam that his phone sits in, and then it's got a little ring light. But my brother is also like outside in a park, and I struggle to see why he needed the ring light. Anyway, he's also got it in vertical. Actually, no, that makes more sense because it's probably for TikTok, isn't it? Anyway, so here's the dealio. Oh God, there's got people on this. Hang on, should I change to that? No, you know what? I'm just gonna firm it. It's so awkward looking like I'm vlogging in public. Anyway, so here's the deal. Here's the dealio. It's been a difficult week. It's been a difficult while. Say week, month, life, really. But it's spring. I'd say this is finally spring. Just the weather, my God. I'm really loving the weather right now. It's blue sky. And lovely sun, but it's still quite chilly. But I quite like that. I'm a big fan of that. A new Gales has opened near my place, which isn't, not my favourite place to go, but it's like if I want to go somewhere that isn't any of my usual spots, but is guaranteed to be like filled with some kind of atmosphere, I've got a Gales not far down the road, and that's quite nice. I need to pee. Anyway, sorry, I really went off on a tangent here. The reason I'm doing this is because I'm reading these. What else is new? I'm reading books, but I've been struggling, constantly doing the shit testing in rehearsals. Had a really good, productive rehearsal. Rewarding is the word I'd use, because I put into it loads of effort. I did lots of trying and lots of failing, and while I didn't come out being told you're amazing or anything, that's not what I was looking for, but I came out feeling good. By far the best thing is that I came out of it, I think, how I felt physically and vocally. I came out of the rehearsal with a voice that was maybe a little tired, but completely strong, completely healthy, and not strained at all. And I was loud. I was really loud the whole time. I did like I think 2 or 3 different characters during that time. Yeah, really, really loud. Had like a screaming moment. Say screaming, it's like it's one syllable, and I've been teaching myself metal screaming. I don't know that I've mentioned this on here yet, but I've been teaching myself how to scream like a metal vocalist. I can't do it yet. However, the principles I'm getting down, and weirdly, it's been one of the things that's really helped me to free up my voice. The whole vibe with like metal screaming is that it sounds really painful, but you end up having to do something counterintuitive because it feels completely different, and the technique is completely different to how you'd think it would be. So it's changing the placement and the feeling of what you expect, and then by doing that, it forces you to have good proper technique. Point is, I did one of those, and again, no problems, got a good desired sound out, and if anything, I came out of the rehearsal tired but energized, if that makes sense, physically and vocally, and so by far I think that shows how far I've come. Had a great chat to one of the directors, who I really love working with, named Sarah, and about lots of things as well as like character. But it was the first rehearsal so far that I've come out of feeling like I'd done a good day, like a day of work, but I loved it, which I think is the most likely what I'm aiming for with this, right, is that kind of similar to when I was doing short films, I would come out of it feeling fucking tired, but like I fucking did a day of work, but stimulated, excited, and like happy. But this has been a great way to shit test my, I guess, process or whatever's come up. And I think I've dialed down a process for now. And it's really interesting. So I'm currently reading a book called The Actor and the Target, which is, among others, but I'm going to be real. I was recommended this on the course a while ago, and because of, I don't want to say like because of who suggested it, but I guess from where it came from, in both the kind of the medium and the conversation. I wasn't necessarily skeptical, but like, yeah, I was skeptical, and I was like, yeah, okay, I guess I will. And, you know, had a bit of hubris, being like, well, I'm currently reading Stanislavski. What's this new guy got to talk about? What's this book by some modern dude? You know, we all do that. And then it kind of came up somehow, again a bit later in rehearsals. And so I was like, okay, maybe I should check it out. I realised the author had just released a second one. So there's The Actor and the Target, and then there's The Actor in the Space. And then kind of on a whim, off a real low, I think it was last weekend, off a real low, oh, my door is open. I bought both books, like a fucking... Sorry, I accidentally paused that. Like a fucking idiot, I bought both books. So, and then I realised that the author, Declan Dolan, I actually know who he is. Not personally, obviously, but I know of him. I've seen like him in videos before. I recognise his face, and he's director. I think one of the main directors of Cheek by Jowl. So he's really fucking knowledgeable. So fuck me and my hubris, I guess. And the book itself is really, really wonderful. It's literally like a fusion of Stanislavski and David Mamet, which is kind of where my brain was kind of headed. And so it's come out perfectly. I really agree with a lot that's what Declan says in there. I've been tearing through this book. I've only had it for a week, and I've barely had any time to read it, and I'm already, like today I read about 5 chapters in, and they're pretty hefty chapters. Anyway, and he's got really great at distilling down concepts simply, but I'm really happy I've read all this other stuff as well, because it's allowing, I've now got this framework, this mental framework to hang stuff off and let them do battle and eventually come to my own conclusions, which is what intelligence is, right? It's what being knowledgeable is, what wisdom is. Wisdom, I think, intelligence, you can come to all your own conclusions with these words, but I think in this concept, you can use intelligence as a word for how many concepts you know, or how many things you have on your mental framework. You're hanging off your mental framework, and then wisdom is using those to come to your own conclusions. So that's really, really interesting. Ooh, I've have smudged my writing, that's fine. Anyway, so I kind of had a bit of a brainwave, and I've had a very wisdom-inducing moment where using my own brain and everything that I've read, not just about acting, but about, I guess, mental health. When I first got to the UK, I had a real struggling point of, I was really, I was coming out of a stage where I was really low mentally, which is part of the reason I moved to the UK. But during my first year here, I really had a period in the summer I was here where I was in a job that I fucking hated, and I was trying to get somewhere and had no idea, which was at the time auditioning for drama schools, and I had no idea how I was going to get there. And I turned to what is sometimes called CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy, but in a different form. Like, it kind of, I guess, followed that framework, but it wasn't necessarily that. All of this self-induced, like finding mental health books, mental clarity specifically, and a concept that came up. There's a guy called Struthless. His name's Campbell Walker, fantastic YouTuber. I've got his book, really great book. I think he's got a second one coming out. That was where a lot of that kind of came from. Would highly recommend him to anyone looking at mental clarity. And one concept that came out of that I've constantly parroted and told people about is your brain is not a storage locker. It's a question and answer machine. You spit it in questions and it spits out answers. And if you want it to run functionally well, you need to declutter it regularly. And then from there, I can do stuff like journaling, and it's kind of become the baseline of my mental health now, which is, I would say, all right, like functional. I'd say it's pretty good. Like I have low points, but I bounce back. I can get myself out of them. I'm very good at being top down in my regulatory. Like I can get myself into stressful situations, and I can pull back and self-actualize for a second and go, I'm good. Even from things that devastate me, I can bounce back in a couple of days. I tend to not have long periods of depression, which is something I used to have a lot. I tend not to get as angry as I used to, which is something I also used to struggle a lot with temper regulation. And if I do, I'm able to come back from it incredibly quickly. It's like the spikes used to be really prolonged, like this, and now it's like that and then down. And a lot of the time, I don't even get to that peak of the spike. All that in saying, that concept of the brain being a question and answer machine was something I purely used about mental health. And then I was just kind of had a bit of a brainwave today, testing loads of concepts, and it was Declan's book that really keyed into that for me and brought me to a head. So I've come up with this idea. So this is in my journal. I've got this journal, and I was writing down questions. I think this is where this journal started, and then it delved into theory. So I said that I think that the key to the process for the invisible work, the invisible acting work, stuff that you do behind the scenes, this is like script work, all this stuff that you don't necessarily want to show on stage. That's what invisible work is. That's how Declan defines it. The invisible work is asking questions, and moreover, not always answering these questions. That's what I believe. I think that you need to get to a point. Questions are creative tools. They're creative stimuli. If there is an end point to the invisible work, it is finding the most stimulating questions that spark creativity. And after I wrote that, my mind jogged about the brain being a question and answer machine. And in the brain's fashion, it spat this out, which is, if the brain is a question and answer machine, then surely the acting equation would be, first, so this is, I guess, a method, the oligo method, defining parameters. These are your given circumstances. This is how your character, the world that your character is in. Creativity works best when it's got rules. So you define rules. These rules are in the text. This can be anything from your given circumstances, how your character walks, how your character talks, what their voice is like, what accent do they have. And then there's also adds things like the target in Declan's book, which I'll leave for people to read about, but the target, you've got objectives of the scene, these kind of things. These are all the defining parameters that the actor, the character, is finding themselves in. These are the parameters that constrict your creativity. And then you use these given circumstances to stimulate creative questions based on the situations, the text that your character finds himself in the text, based on your scenes. And then you dilute these questions down to the most creative and most appropriate for each situation. And this is where you have elements like Stanislavski's bits and tasks coming in. Tasks are theoretically those situations. It's a stimulating task that allows you to play on it. This is also called actioning. For me, I'm toying with this idea of them being questions. I think Jacques Lecoq is someone who's much more on the playing side of things, and that's kind of what I'm going with that. Anyway, so you dilute these down to the most creative and appropriate questions for this situation, and then the final stage is that you ensure that for the performance, the mind is suitably decluttered, which is what is also known as the peak creative state, and the body and the voice are in peak physical condition and shape, so as best to conduct the creativity. So what does that mean? It means that when you're on stage, you're present. Being present is the peak creative state, because you have nothing in your brain, you are in the moment, you're not, ideally you have your mental health in a good position, that you're not like cluttering, you're not thinking, what do I look like, all this external stuff. You are attentive, you are present. And the body and the voice are in peak physical shape. The body and voice need to be like an athlete. An actor is an athlete. There's something I've been saying for a while. Then that's literally it. They need to be in the peak physical state, because then the process can happen. And the process is, due to the situation, your body will automatically conduct the invisible work to create stimulating questions in the environment, and you will answer those stimulating questions with your brain, and your body and your voice will transmit that to the audience. In a nutshell, really simply putting it down, I think that is a simple equation for what the acting process is. And I haven't heard it put like that yet. I don't think it's wrong. It is 100% more complex than that. Each one of those you can delve into a lot more. This is something that is completely personal to each and every individual, but I think having it set down that simply is really, really useful, because something coming back to David Metz's philosophy, you need to always know where you're going. You need to always have an end point. This is also in the Alexander technique, having an end point of freedom. Having an end point is fantastic, because it means that you can constantly, when you're not there, you can then diagnose problems. And the Alexander technique, if it started as a postural thing, where instead of taking a frame of perfect posture and pushing that onto every person, shoulders back, head up, all this kind of stuff, you instead start with you as you are and take one problem at a time. Say, notice where your body is and go, oh, my shoulder, I'm noticing my shoulders are tense, and untensing that with an end goal in mind, that end goal being forward and upwards, and putting those two together, and so you know where you're going to go, and tackling problems systematically that you feel with that end goal in mind. Does that make sense? And then that being the postural, the physical, bodily exercise or technique, the Alexander technique, can then also, I think, works really well as a frame, as a mental frame for problems that you have, learning things, anything like that. And then again, acting as well. So that's my discovery for this week. I'm quite happy with that. I have no doubt this is something that will change. This will become more nuanced, but I think this is a framework that can. This is a root system, right? Learning a skill is a semantic tree. This is not my code. This is something else, and actually very useful if you plug this into ChatGPT. Learning a skill is like a semantic tree, and you start at the roots, which are the core principles, and you use those core principles to create a framework, and then everything else you're branching off that framework and hanging on to that framework. You learn, spit testing it and creating new things. And this would be the root system. This is the basic fundamentals, this is the end goal, and everything you do has to go into that. If I'm fucking around with a character backstory, say I'm asking questions like how old is he? People have these like character lists that you just got to fill out and go, what does this, and all these stupid questions, and they say, oh, so you know who your character is. I don't find that terribly useful, because you kind of write that all down and it ends up feeling like a character customizer in a video game. I think it's like one of those things that it's almost there but not quite. Instead, what's even better is to go, I want to know what my character's body is like. Like, what is their body? How are they standing on stage? What's their voice like? What's their physicality? So you start with that, and then you ask questions going down. So you go, for example, if you're asking if they're a smoker, if you say yes, then the reason you're asking that question is because you want to know, does that affect the physicality? Does that affect the voice? Is he someone who's coughing a lot? That's directly transmitting into that. But if it doesn't directly translate into that, then it's not useful, and you shouldn't fanny around with it. So it's that little change where instead of implementing this character questionnaire onto your character, you're creating a character questionnaire or a family tree of questions based on the given circumstances and from what's in the text. I think that's the problem that people run into, is that they put their own frames onto each character rather than let and each text, rather than let the text and the character stimulate the new frame. I think that's everything. I think that's everything for today. Good day, really good day, I think. A nice quiet day, but productive. I've got pretty much everything I wanted to do done. I don't know what time it is, but I now just need to do some laundry and plug some more French into my brain, because I'm going to be going to France soon. Yeah. Great. I guess I'll see you later.